Hello, Cryptonauts, and welcome back to another episode of Cryptocurrency Chat. I am your host, Blockchain John, with my co-host Jake Jabarelli, to give you this exclusive interview with LSJI07, aka Leighton Webb. Welcome, Leighton.
Well, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. So before we get to, I guess your background prior to crypto, I always like to ask a an icebreaker question, and the icebreaker question of the day is: aside from Ravencoin, because that's primarily what you hear about, what is your all-time favorite crypto, and why? Leighton,
I like, yeah, I'm here. I like Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, and
Yeah,
and
it's
and why is that?
I like Bitcoin just because of obviously the size of the network. It's first, and the UTXO structure and the way that you can allocate value without using anyone else. Uh,
Hmm, very nice. So, okay, good, perfect. Now, for the folks that don't know, Leighton was actually here 16 hours ago because we got our time zones mixed up, and I appreciate Leighton you being there. But it was in the middle of the night when you're pinging me, or else we could have recorded a midnight show. There's actually we did do a little meetup afterwards, which was nice that the whole community came together and did I guess a midnight discussion on Ravencoin, and we got into some really nitty gritty stuff. So, if you guys are interested in that, that are watching or listening, you guys can connect with us in Twitter Spaces. That's a new thing. That's where we've been doing our meetups, which is really cool. Leighton, LSJI07 is the founder of Raven Angels Community. He's a husband, father, and protector. I'm kind of curious why you put that there, protector. You're also a hobby economist, right? And what else? You are working on Ravencoin, right?
yeah,
Perfect.
so I'm a community member of Ravencoin, and I've been involved since I found out about the project, which was a month or two after launch, and just working with them because I really like the project and where they're going and the ethos of it.
Perfect.
Um,
So before we move too much forward into that, I always like to ask my first time guest on the podcast is what did you do prior to you learning about crypto? Um, Anything crypto. What was your background prior to that? Your history, your personal history. Give it
I
paint
was
us a picture.
picture. I was a person that was from a second or third world country that moved over to a first world country and got educated and went to college and university and got into engineering. And I was pretty successful at that. Went all the way from working with my hands for companies all the way through to eventually running my own company.
And that's what you're doing now.
And that's what I'm doing now. It's not an engineering company, but it's a company that I'm running because I want to test some ideas on Ravencoin.
Interesting. And since you were one of the early adopters of Ravencoin, you've stuck with it ever since. Have you tried looking at other projects out there?
Yes, I have tried looking at other projects, and I do have an interest in other projects just because in my opinion, projects are good at different things. So I just I like to use the best tool for the job. So Ravencoin can be a really good ledger, but other projects can be really good at other providing other functions, other services.
Nice. I still want to move a little back. You said you moved from a third world country to a first world country. How old were you when this happened? And was it your sole decision, or was it when you were very young and it was a transition with your parents?
It was a transition with my parents when I was low teens. Because it was just getting really, really dodgy security wise, and my family had several incidents
Oh,
where their safety was compromised, so they decided to move.
so definitely, I would recommend you giving a shout out to moms and dads, right? Mama, Dada,
Yeah.
good job. All right. And now you're obviously part of the Ravencoin community, so we're gonna get talking to about that. You got a lot of people admire you, LSJI07, of being one. Like you said, you're one of those first people that adopted Ravencoin early on, and you're very proactive in discussions in development and just the general community. You're out there everywhere. I see that everywhere. Um, you're very involved and you have a big passion for Ravencoin. But are you a developer of the
No,
Ravencoin project?
I'll say pretty explicitly no, purely because um, I am massively interested in the value proposition that blockchain can enable. And with my history in business and with seeing what countries can be like when they don't have great organization, when they don't have reliable ledgers, I'm massively interested in getting business and peoples uh, aware of blockchain as a technology that can improve their lives because there's a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of people concerned that they're gonna um, make mistakes getting involved in crypto for the first time, and it's just really I want to try and help people not make those mistakes because some of them are no doubt mistakes I've made and that other people in the community have made. So it's just really wanting to help people.
Beautiful, and that's why I really appreciate you coming onto the podcast to talk about this. Uh, you do have husband, father, and protector, and I was asking earlier, what does that protector mean to you? You put that in your
To
description.
me, yeah, I put it in my description just because for me, family is one of the most important things. Um, it's one of those non-negotiable things. If my family isn't looked after, then I yeah, you don't function as a person and to um do what you need to do in your life. So it's and that support group is really important as well. So I mean, people talk a lot about mental health and stuff like that, and making sure that my family is in place and looked after is really important to me.
You're the first person on the podcast to actually bring up mental health. Mental health in crypto is actually a real thing, right? There's actually people that have already in the crypto history, in the short span of this crypto history, that have already committed suicide, have already committed crimes against other people's for their private keys or for their own crypto or for doing bad swaps, exchanges, trying to gamble with crypto. Uh, that's the reality that's going on with crypto when you're too deep in it. And people don't talk about that. And I'm glad you brought that up, mental health, because this is just the beginning of a stigma that's going to be attached on the back end of crypto. So I do want to bring this up. If you know anything in regards to this, I would like you to talk about this if you can.
Well, it's to be honest, mental health for me is really important because I know that firsthand what depression and anxiety and stuff can do to a person, and that's why my support group is really valuable to me. So when necessary, I've had to take steps to like step back and like take 2 or 3 months out, go away, don't do anything Ravencoin, um, readjust what I'm doing for work, make sure that I can continue to function, and that's why my family is really important to me. So it enables me to function, and I know that. So I protect them and they protect me.
Beautiful. So you did mention that you take about a month or two off if you're too deep in it. Is this a recommendation you can make to other people that are just too far into uh, emotionally emotionally involved in crypto that's already affecting their mental health? They're staying up. They're over caffeinated per se. They're starting to have bad relationships with their partners, with their families, with their coworkers.
Oh yeah, massively. I would definitely recommend having a break because um, value in the world is replaceable. Your life and your family are not. They are unique. That there's nothing that can replace them.
Beautiful, beautifully said. I love that, man. I'm so happy you brought that up. Like I said, you are the first one to bring up mental health, and you. I don't know if you wanted to really go down that rabbit hole, but I took you
No,
down that rabbit hole because it's something that I've been wanting to talk about, but I haven't found anybody really in the podcast, and you're the first one to actually bring that up. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Now, Ellis, you're the first one on the record. Here you go. Thank you for bringing that up. So keep in mind to the community out there, if you are struggling emotionally with crypto, if you're too involved, if you ended up dumping your entire finances, which you should not do, just a small little piece of your income should be going into profit, in my opinion. Obviously, not financial advice, but I think that's the best way to play the game. Don't go don't go all the ways in, right? All right, let's talk about Ravencoin. Actually, Jake, do you have any questions before we move over to Ravencoin?
Not yet. It's good to listen. And just as a note, as we have already pointed out, this is not financial advice. It's a podcast, and the host buy-in is all entertainment purposes only. And we can't offer financial advice here because we're not accredited. So please do not take this as just for entertainment.
that is a relief.
Questions?
Beautifully said. Right, let's talk about Ravencoin. You've been there pretty much since the beginning, right? You've got to see the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the ugly. Anything and everything, you've been there through the thick and the thin. Early on, Ravencoin went through several transitions with their algorithm, right? How was that with the community to make those decisions to transition from one algorithm to the next, and why? Okay, first answer why, because I think that's more important than anything. Why did Ravencoin make that transition from one algorithm, which was X16? Was it X16R? Correct.
Yeah, it was X16R initially, and then we went to X16R V2, and then it was a jump to Capel, which is the algorithm they're on at the moment. So there was two hard forks specifically for the algorithm. It was brutal, absolutely brutal. The the discussions going on around the forks and the reasoning for them, especially around the algorithm, it was people wanting to protect Ravencoin mostly, and it's just people protect things in different ways. Um, I, I honestly think that everyone in the community wanted to protect Ravencoin, but it's just the best way to do that. You don't really know until you've got a couple of good options and you get them tested out, coded up, and get the best ones to the table.
Ellis, you said protect Ravencoin. Protect Ravencoin from what is the question?
A lot of the time, it's protecting Ravencoin from yourself because the tendency is to centralize stuff because it makes things so much easier. I mean, it's a lot easier if you can sit there and go, well, today I'm getting a wage, I'm getting a paycheck for working on this project, Ravencoin, and I know that's going to come in for the next 2 3 years because the there's a dev fee that's on chain that's going to kind of pay my wages, and that's easy.
Was
That's
that
really easy.
was
But
that was that a thing?
at one point, it was a thing where there was potential for that,
But
and it was never something that was adopted.
okay. Now,
But it was something that was, shall we say, discussed because um, early on, the Ravencoin project was uh, really, really amazingly supported by a company who donated development work. and that was obviously Medici and part of Overstock, etc. And that's where obviously how Tron got involved, and that was a massive boost for Ravencoin because the development was happening, and there was people who were paid to be working on it, even though it was donated and everything. So when there was potential that would stop, the discussions started happening about how did they get paid, and that can be quite brutal because you're talking about someone's income.
Right.
You can almost feel like, well, it's nasty. You're taking away someone's income,
Right.
but it can't be thinking like that.
Yeah.
What the best? Sorry, go on.
No. Go ahead.
Well, the best security for blockchain is to be decentralized and open source and follow, in my opinion, to follow Bitcoin's model as closely as possible. Um, in my opinion, Ravencoin's done that as far as possible. There's certain things that Ravencoin couldn't maintain because it came out at a different time to Bitcoin, and there's different technological stuff that happened. So like GPUs for mining were a thing, and the difficulty algorithm needed changing because of that technical advancement to make the Ravencoin network more stable, and things like that. And it's a lot of the community decisions I think were mostly right. A lot of the time they made really good decisions from a decentralization point of view. There's some decisions that you look back at and go, well, maybe that's the best option at the time, but we could have maybe made a better decision. But that's the glory of hindsight.
Hmm. Now, like you said, the algorithm has been changed on multiple occasions, and this was to detach from allowing ASICs to be utilized on the network, correct?
Yes. So the idea for Ravencoin was to make the distribution fair, and using ASIC miners and having the distribution unfairly weighted towards ASIC miners. It's just it doesn't fit with the initial white paper of Ravencoin, but also the community's desire for uh, distribution to be fair and spread across as many people as possible.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's a good thing. There's one thing I don't really know much about, and I'm hoping you can shine a little light on this, just because this part of the history of Ravencoin, I wasn't there. It's Medici and Overstock. Can you talk a little bit about them? Because you were there pretty much when they were developing on Ravencoin.
Um, Early doors, they were an absolutely amazing the development team. So the obviously Tron and several of the developers contributed the code and developed that, because what Medici and Overstock were doing is they were giving developers free reign to work on free open source software, and the developers could choose what they wanted to work on. And that was how Tron got involved because he was obviously massively interested in Bitcoin, so he's a Bitcoiner, and he's also a businessman. So taking tokens and applying them to a Bitcoin model, a blockchain, it was ideal for him. So that's how that kind of kicked off and got into place. I mean, there's a lot of, for me, it almost feels like a bit of noise. People create a lot of noise around Patrick Byrne as he was leading Overstock at the time, being CEO, and Bruce Fenton. Bruce, in my opinion, did an amazing thing when he just gave away the idea for Ravencoin. That was, in my opinion, absolutely epic. And then getting someone like Patrick Byrne, who at the time was obviously massively interested in blockchain, but also wanted to kind of develop more things around security tokens, uh, and getting some of their development team interested in free open source software like Ravencoin and the idea behind it, I think that was just amazing, especially in a climate where blockchain developers are exceedingly hard to kind of get hold of. So that was really, really fortuitous. And as some people, you see some people and they just tend to always land on their feet. And you're like, how the heck do you do that? Oh, and yeah, for me, watching Ravencoin, it was just, yeah, I'm sure there's obviously stuff going on that people were trying their best to get. Go on.
And now they're no longer Overstock and Medici are no longer affiliated. Correct me if I'm wrong. Affiliated with Ravencoin, correct?
Yeah. So, what they did is they gave an amount of funding to set up a foundation, and I believe that was a one-off payment. I think initially it was going to be more, etc. But yeah, they decided they wanted to step away from the project, and in my opinion, that's absolutely awesome because too much association with a company that is involved in the STO space, like Medici and T0 and stuff like that, is, in my opinion, is bad for Ravencoin's
So now
image.
yeah,
I can't
an
think of a better
image.
way to describe that.
Mm-hmm. And now that they're out of this, don't you think there might be a little concerns, considering that they were the early ones to touch the Ravencoin code, that there might be some type of bad code injected into Ravencoin? I mean, considering that this is a corporate company, I mean, who knows? I mean, if you got a big company up there on the top paying a lot of money to these developers, and you kind of shoulder tap somebody saying, "Hey, I want you to put this code in there," Is it possible? It's always possible, right?
Oh yeah, I'm never going to say something's not possible, but that is the beauty of open source code. The code that people run is there. It's everyone can see it. You can go and check it line by line. It's based off Bitcoin's code, so you can actually take it and you can go and compare it to Bitcoin's code if you wanted to. And it's all the changes are all logged. They're all there. The history of all the changes that have ever been made. I mean, people write code, so people attack things. People write bad code. People get tired. They do typos. And having free open source code means that there's more eyes on it. Now, it means that there can be more eyes on it. It doesn't mean that people are looking at it. So for me, in my point of view, I always want more developers to be looking at Ravencoin. If you are a developer and you want to work on a blockchain project that is like Bitcoin, that has improved on some of the features of like UTXO and added digital tokens, have a look. It's free. You can just go into GitHub, look at Ravencoin, and everything's there in the GitHub, and you can go through section by section and see all the code and how it's been done up to now and change it and fork it and make it yours. If you don't like something, change it. I mean, if there's, I mean, nothing, in my opinion, is absolutely perfect in the way that you want it, and there can always be improvements. So, what I am wanting more than anything is developers and people to test Ravencoin and say, "Oh, do you know what? We don't like that. Oh yeah, we like that. We don't like that. That really doesn't work for this use case." And just start discussions about what they do and don't like. And then the Ravencoin wallet, the core wallet. I mean, I would love to have other wallets out there where other developers are going, "Do you know what? The core wallet's great, but it's no good for like issuing an NFT easily. I want to be able to issue an NFT and like generate 600 of them in like 5 seconds. I want to be able to do that. So why can't I do that? I want to make a wallet that'll do that for me, and that would be amazing. It falls into like what people will use. So if someone wants to develop that and make that, that would be amazing. I mean, another one is one of the nice links. Sorry, that Ravencoin. I mean, I could talk about this all day, so I don't want to just like waste your time. But there's like links to IPFS. and there's potential for messaging. And if you could build a wallet that connects with messaging, and there's so much potential for what the technology can enable.
All right, let's talk about P2SH and aka segregated witness, because that is a thing that's currently on Ravencoin testnet, right? And pretty much the whole community and the
Yep.
development team is really focused on trying to get P2SH Segwit fully activated on main chain. And it's been a long time, and there's been a lot of concerns about it. We did actually talk about this a little bit last night, but in layman terms, can you explain to the viewers and listeners what Segwit will do for the Ravencoin project?
Well, Segwit, what it does is it takes your transaction. So when you send some Ravencoin or you send an asset, it takes the transaction, and normally there would be a signature that allows that transaction to happen. So it takes it from being a private key and essentially changes it so that that transaction can get paid with a script. And that script can then allow more complicated functions to go on in the background that can then open up some functionality that can enable things like a atomic swap or atomic asset swap, which is like on Ravencoin to a Ravencoin asset, or a cross-chain atomic swap to other chains. So you could go and say exchange a Ravencoin asset that you've created for another chain, another blockchain's token, or the standard kind of functionality that P2 that Segwit would enable is like a multi-sig address, so you can have multiple people sign a transaction or redeem a transaction.
Beautiful. Jake, did that make sense? Do you think that's acceptable enough for the person that's not into crypto to clearly understand what that is?
I was actually gonna, well, I was not so much inquire on the
Go ahead.
explanation, but the thing that I was gonna make a point was per the conversation we had last night at midnight, that I was randomly pulled into. The we guys went into a lot of different detail, a lot of different things that are important to Ravencoin. Maybe, let me put it exactly. Unless you're already in the community, it may not make as much sense to a new person coming into the concept of what Ravencoin can do for the world, and what it's already doing to some degree. It's somewhat of a finance technical level. And I am familiar with this, so it's not that difficult for me. But I'd say for the new person, it's very difficult to comprehend. However, and this is what I keep trying to think of whenever we talk about these things, is what's the simple example of what's really going on here? Because I taught classes for a long time, in particular classes on technical activities, and people asked me to teach classes on IT many years ago, and I had to think of ways to simplify the concepts down into something that someone would understand on a daily basis. I used to be a tutor as well, and multi-sig thing is something that not a whole lot of people are going to be necessarily using, but a good example I keep thinking of when it comes to multi-sig is people living in a house. If it's you and your spouse, you probably both have a key to the house. But if it's you and your kids, you probably all have keys to the house. Multi-sig, it's not necessarily that you're all going to be, locking. Or you're all going to be locking and unlocking the doors of the house, but you don't need to lock them all at the same time. And that's kind of what multi-sig ends up enabling. If you all had to leave the house at the same time, or in order to get into the house, had to all be there simultaneously to unlock the door, then that would be a close equivalent to multi-sig concept for an asset. Now, a home is an asset, but typically we travel independently in and out of the house. Maybe you go with your mom, or maybe you go with your dad as a kid. But it's usually the mom or the dad who's doing the locking and unlocking of the house, or maybe just going through the garage if you have one. But if you had to all be there simultaneously with each of your own individual unique keys that all technically unlock the house, that is a way of looking at multi-sig. It's oh, we all have our unique permission to get into this house, but we all have ownership or at least permission to this house, and we all need to simultaneously contribute to that permission. You said, and in daily life, it's not something people would probably necessarily recognize as a value. The only thing I can think of is maybe a safety deposit box would be a good example in what people might use, but in children and normal everyday people, not everyone has a safety deposit box, or maybe a safe or something. And had more than one key. All of us have to bring our keys at the same time and unlock the safe at the same time, or unlock the safety deposit box. But yeah, it's.
I don't know. I like where you're going with the house analogy, just because
Right.
a lot of houses are kind of moving to more of a digital frontier. So a lot of the locks tend to be digital. So they carry around little fobs and tokens, or um,
Right. But the multi-sig thing is not just that, because like I said before, with a home, it's usually one person enters at a time, and you all have access to it. But with multi-sig, you're literally asking for multiple people to simultaneously be
well,
Not
signing
necessarily.
for the access. Oh,
yeah, not necessarily. That's like it depends what kind of multi-sig it is. So like you could have a 105, and then anybody in those five can then go and unlock that door and get in. So it's just
okay.
a script that applies some logic to what you want to then happen afterwards.
Okay, I guess maybe I was mistaken. I thought that the idea of multi-sig was that you all had to simultaneously sign as opposed to just one person at a time.
No.
But yeah, basically
No,
the home analogy is that everybody has access. They have their own key. They can all individually get into the home or out of the home.
I can kind of just go a little more into. You have the right idea. I would just say that, let's say dad opens the house, and imagine dad, mom, and two or three kids, um, are everyone's a transaction, right? You just need that one person, dad, to unlock the door, and then everyone is batched together into a block per se. That's the transaction that dad is opening the door. You can have one, you know, or like you said, you can also modify that and go to a bank safe, right, a vault, and use two or three different keys. It depends on how you modify it, but Segwit gives you that ability, that option to modify it per se, and you can batch a lot of things together with just a single transaction or multiple transactions.
I mean the easiest way that I've kind of had of thinking about this is if you it's less about for me it's about who's redeeming the script. So like nothing really the person who's sending the funds or the doing initiating the transaction doesn't really have a great deal to do until the guys who receive it um, actually start to process the transaction, um, which is it sounds like it's back to front, but it's just the way the tech works because if you do it that way around, you can guarantee that the funds are in place before the contract or the logic on chain kind of gets executed or the script, if you prefer that.
Hmm. All right, let's talk about NFTs and UTXOs. NFTs just hit a 10x recently in creating assets on the Ravencoin network. What was it? I think it was 1 month in comparison to 12 months. Was it? Was that what it was? There was a tweet out like that. Can you guys check that up real
Yeah,
quick?
the spike was insane
Yeah, it was
of,
insane.
of activity. Yeah,
Let's see if I have it here. I don't have it here. That's unfortunate. Okay, but yeah, it was insane. It was like 12 months. You have like 16,000 assets created, and then all of a sudden, like in 10 days, you have 16,000 assets created. So it's insane. It's insane what's going on with Ravencoin right now. Everybody and their grannies creating assets. I've seen a
yeah.
lot of good stuff, and a lot of in my for me, I'm gonna say there's some stuff that in there on Ravencoin that's not the best of the best. I guess now we can call like different types of classes. There's like AAA uh, uh, assets, right?
Grade,
And then
super grade. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we should start doing that, having different types of grade levels on assets. And then there's like um, scam coin. That's one of the one of the craziest worst ones out there, but it works. It works. You know, Solus actually did a pretty good job at marketing that thing. Yeah, shout out to Solus out there. UTXOs and NFTs. That is a very unique feature on Ravencoin that currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, currently there is no other project out there that makes it so easy to create assets on a project like Ravencoin.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's Ravencoin is one of the easiest to actually get a NFT or unique asset minted, made and done, and straight into circulation. It's really, really straightforward.
Can you explain the difference of creating an asset as a UTXO versus a smart contract ERC20?
Okay, so I'll start with the ERC. So normally the ERC is the ERC721,
Correct.
and the way you construct the way you construct the smart contract is normally so that, well, the special thing about smart contracts is that the smart contract actually holds and controls the NFT. So when someone potentially buys an NFT from a smart contract, the NFT would get minted potentially if it's a generative type NFT. It would get added into the smart contract, but the actual NFT that gets minted would still live in the smart contract. So it would just get simply assigned to a Ethereum address. That is your address if you're the buyer or owner, etc., which is awesome. With Ravencoin, it's a little bit different. So when you issue and create a NFT, there's a few different ways to do it, as in how you can construct them and organize them. But in general, it costs 5 Raven to burn. But the way it gets made on Ravencoin is it actually creates the token's own UTXO database. So it's got its own history that can actually get sent, like Ravencoin or like a Bitcoin, to another person's address. So they actually can take receipt of the token rather than it living in the smart contract, where yes, you own it because it's assigned to you or issued to you, but in some people's opinion, that's not true ownership. So yeah, Ravencoin's special in that regard.
Right, because smart contracts can only work if the EVM is work. If the Ethereum virtual machine is working, right? You can have Ethereum, but if you don't have the Ethereum virtual machine to actually activate those smart contracts on, then you don't really have a use case, or you can't utilize those assets, those ERC721s, right? But
Yeah,
when it comes
you can't
to
change the contract.
right, but when it comes to um, UTXOs on a uh, chain like Ravencoin, there's you can do whatever you want. I mean, it's built within the core. Unless you destroy the entire project, that's the only way you're going to get rid of those assets, right?
Yeah. So the only way that I know of to get rid of assets is not create them in the first place, or burn them, send them to an address that nobody has access to.
Yeah.
And that is the only way you can get rid of those UTXOs. And even then, it's not really getting rid of it. It's sitting in a bin somewhere. It's the train still tracks it and keeps track of it. It's still
Right.
doing its job. It's just no one can access it.
Right. If you want, you can send them to my address. That's okay. If you don't want them, I'll take them. Let's talk about Raven Angels community. That's your baby project, right? You are the founder of Raven Angel Community. What is this? What's going on with this?
What I found is when I came into the Ravencoin community, it was pretty small. And by small, I wouldn't say that it was low quality. The people there really, really helped explain some of the ideas, some of the tech, because for me, I was a bit of a an absolute noob. So they explained the concepts and showed how things worked, and we looked at other chains and how they worked, and went through the white paper and said, all right, well, this is a good idea, this is not such a good idea, and the community educated each other. So what Raven Angels is the community for Ravencoiners, and Ravencoiners who want to help other people, and this is not just a Ravencoiners want to help themselves. It's a place for people to learn about blockchain and get resources about blockchain. Now it's completely community based, so people in Ravencoin, a lot of the names that you know from the Ravencoin community are Raven Angels. Some of them are legendary just because of the work that they've done. Some of the projects that they've done, they're just firsts. So they've got some legendary tokens for the membership, and it's really an educational drive for me, because I want people to be able to come to a place that isn't covered in memes,
Right.
and find a place to actually educate themselves about Ravencoin and what's possible, especially with interconnecting to other chains, like chains that enable automation, like Ethereum, and can help automate value. And yeah, and this Ravencoin is an absolutely amazing ledger. So in my opinion, people would be crazy not to create their assets on Ravencoin. But other projects are really good at manipulating value, and they've got awesome exchanges and ways of, like DeFi, automation and smart contracts are a lot with solidarity and stuff like that. You can create a far more complex system that, in my opinion, Ravencoin can then go and tap into, but then people can always move between chains. So that's ideally for me what I want to see happening. But it needs education for people, and we need to make things easy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm trying to do. So I've got some developers for Ravencoin that are spending time working on it, and we're just looking at how to make things easy, but educate the community on some of the best practices and ways to do things, and just avoid the issues that some of us made in the first place.
Are you
Sometimes the problems are massive, but sometimes they're tiny.
mhm. Are you able to screen share for us what Raven Angels is? Do you have a little website or something?
There's a website, but I mean, one of the places that I've got up at the moment is the Raven Angels Discord. So I'll just share
Beautiful.
screen at the moment
Yeah,
for what,
yeah.
what I've got
Please.
there.
Now,
So
is there a membership fee to be part of the Raven Angels?
so at the moment, I've said for the first for the next 100 people who join, they'll get a free Ravencoin members token.
Okay, so
But my
okay, so
plan was to actually charge 100 Raven to access the Discord, and that's just a fee that's going to go towards Ravencoin development and some marketing, because there is no marketing department, so there's no funds for that. So I'd like to get some community funds together to fund that by providing a bit of a service.
okay, okay,
Yeah. So what you're looking at there, can you see my screen?
yes, yes.
Yeah. So what you're looking at there is just a chart that's in Raven Angels at the moment, where uh, just finding out a bit more about P2SH, getting resources together for the community, and basically one of the ideas that we need to start working on is about P2SH scripts and using them for NFT marketplaces, because there's a bit of a, not a trust issue, but the way that prices work for NFTs at the moment, they're not on chain. So we're trying to find a way to get the prices recorded on chain, but also so that the marketplaces can fund themselves with their fees. So we don't want to be taking things away from marketplaces, because they do their work in getting people together with the buyers and the sellers. But we also need a trusted record of what the prices are for the NFTs. So if we can use P2SH to kind of decide if that's possible, that's one of the things that I'm trying to look at the moment and improve on for Ravencoiners.
I see you have some legitimate.
Folks in your group. FDOF, Hype Man, Jaraz,
MK,
MK, Nonprofit, Robbie, Ravency, 666, Crypto Life Crisis.
Yeah, well, it's it's growing. It's just what I'm interested in is I'm interested in people who want to help other Ravencoiners, but also people who have got issues that they can't necessarily sort out themselves. We just want to help people on Ravencoin. So when if you find the Discord link from Twitter or wherever you may find it, there's a place and there's a general chat where it's never ever going to be like paywalled or anything like that, because that's not how I want it to work. That ability to get help on Ravencoin, even because there's other Discords out there. There's community Discords for Ravencoin, and they are awesome, but they're a bit noisy, and you can sometimes have issues with scammers and stuff like that who try then direct message you. So what we're aiming to do is just make it a bit safer for people who want to get in touch and sort out their issues, but speak to people who know what they're talking about and know what could be the issue for those users. And we're targeting Ravencoin specifically, but it's blockchain related stuff, and so if we can help people, we will.
Beautiful.
Jake,
do you have anything?
Sorry, it was muted. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
LS, can you exit that?
LS,
please?
can you
We're
exit
getting
that?
some
Please?
feedback.
We're getting some feedback loop.
Yeah, sorry.
Perfect.
Sorted.
Yeah, go ahead. Jake?
No, it's all done. Sorry, you just adjusted there a little bit.
Jake, did you have anything?
I don't have anything. It was good to hear what you guys were talking about. I shouldn't say it's all new to me. It's definitely not, but it's still good to hear it reiterated and confirmed. It enhances my comprehension of what's really being said and what's really happening. So.
Right. LS, obviously, P2SH is coming out. When's your idea, your experience as you've been seeing this development progress, I guess, on a daily basis? When are we expecting that to happen? What's your expectation?
I was hoping like 2 weeks ago we'd have some unsigned binaries out. So where we are at the moment is we've got a 4.7 wallet that's available to testers. It works on mainnet and it works on testnet, and it's in testing. It's been thoroughly audited, which some people may debate, just because of the people have questions about how the audits are done, and it's always hard to do that with software. So it's good questions that people are asking.
But the code is good, right?
4.7 is available. Sorry?
The code is good.
Yeah, the code is good. What I would love to see is more people testing. So people just going on to GitHub and downloading 4.7 and seeing the code and just looking at the user interface and going, do you know what, that looks a bit funny on my monitor, because some of the issues were that PRs or some changes that have been made to the code are around like high DPI monitors, so it just looks better and doesn't get all jumbled and horrible looking. So yeah, the stuff that people can do just by starting up the wallet, having a look at it and going, oh, do you know what, that works for me. I'm on Linux, and just leave a comment in GitHub to say, I've tested on Linux that the high DPI wallet looks good. And literally, that would be amazing to see from more community members. If you're on Windows, go for it. If you are on Mac OS, go for for it. And it's just that the more people that would be doing that, the more confidence we'd have in the code, because there's people running them on different systems, and things are coming back as good.
So somebody like me that's running an older wallet, how do I upgrade to a newer wallet, to 4.7?
So one of the devs who created the test, I'll drop a link. I'll DM you a link, but because it's in one of the development channels in one of the discords, so it's a link that is made by a developer called FDove or FDoving on GitHub, and I'll drop you a link so you can add it if you want. But literally, there's several packages on the link, and there's also a small explainer of what needs testing, so you can have a good look at what you can look at once it's downloaded and working. But if you've installed a Ravencoin wallet, this literally is it will install over the top of it. So what I would personally recommend is copy your wallet's data to a different location, secure yourself, all the good security practices, and then maybe or install it in a different location if you're comfortable doing that.
So there's a lot of, I guess, scams out there, and people cloning the wallet and saying that this is the true version of Ravencoin. How can a person know which is true when they're obviously seeing this on their social media? Hey, download this newest version, 4.3.2.1 of Ravencoin.
You know, when I said I was going to DM you it,
Right? No,
don't trust people who DM you the wallet.
Right.
That's the basis. I would not trust any links that people sent through to me just because links can get messed about with. So I would expect a link that is genuine to direct me back to Ravencoin project on GitHub, and that would be the correct source.
Okay. So when it comes to
in general,
when it
for
comes to
wallets,
4.7, who's the developer for, or who's taking credit for 4.7? So when I actually go search it and I find the developer's name attached to 4.7 wallet, I know that this is one of the trusted wallets out there.
So FDog has a release that's available,
Hey, Jake,
but it is a
can you mute your
team.
microphone?
I would say it is a team development effort. He's just put the binaries out there and made them available on his GitHub so that the community in general doesn't get confused, because it is still software that requires testing.
Okay. 4.7. Nice. We got to get a bunch of tweets out about that to get some more testing. All right. I think we're going to wrap it up. Unless you got something, Jake. I know you like mining. You're into mining. Are you going to consider mining Ravencoin, Jake?
It's never been. Well, that's not true. I did mine Ravencoin for quite some time when I first discovered it, 2 years ago. And it's not like the network has gone up a lot, not nearly as much as Ethereum has gone up. I'm still mining Ethereum, ironically. My problem with Raven, and maybe it's just I haven't found anything in the Raven community that's taught me how to do it, but Raven is really harsh. The algorithm is really, really harsh on GPUs. And so it tends to make
It runs hot.
It runs extremely hot, yes. Yeah. And I have a different coin that I run on a regular basis that runs extremely cool, and I much prefer it. So it's not that I don't support the Raven community, I just don't like mining it.
No, that's fair enough. The Kapow algorithm is doing its job. That's what I kind of hear there, because it's the kind of purpose of Kapow is to make every element of a GPU work at its absolute hardest, and that's what prevents people from easily making an ASIC, because essentially they'd have to replicate a GPU. So that tells me it's working, but I know what you're saying. It does run hot. There's a couple of tricks. Obviously, you can reduce the power level, etc., etc., but you lose your hash a bit. So
yeah, I know. There's one of the things I actually do since my miners or my GPUs are really old. They're still within the bandwidth, right, for the they haven't exceeded the RAM capacity like Ethereum has, but the DAG file is not too large yet on Raven. But it just means well, there's two factors. One, if you allow it to run hot, you're more likely going to destroy your equipment faster, or it means you have to provide more cooling, and that takes away from the power or the cost that you're using to mine the Ravencoin. So I'm not saying Ravencoin, although Ethereum is still more profitable than Ravencoin is for any one miner, and there are obviously people who are mining it because they want Ravencoin, but for a very short time, and then when Ravencoin was going up really high in value, I think it hit like 29 or 25 cents a coin, which is very high. It was competing directly with Ethereum on for miners. Miners were actually, hey, Ravencoin, this might be a good idea. But then, of course, once Ethereum goes completely proof of stake, then Ravencoin will be one of those contenders again.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've kind of been watching is how Ethereum, the hash rate and that kind of varies with the announcements and the feeling that miners get from Ethereum. If the miners are thinking that they're going to get a bit more time, then they all flock back to Ethereum, and then the mining kind of takes off again, which I think is kind of weird because there's ASICs on there and all that, so it's still profitable. So that's the point. Go for it.
Yep.
I would personally be mining Ethereum to exchange to Raven, but I'm not like I'm not going to tell people what to do.
No, I have plenty of Raven. I've had quite a lot of years, and I've actually used quite a bit of it to make NFTs.
Cool.
And other assets, and then of course for trading, and I bought my own, one of my keys from just NFTs. Yeah, and then of course I've given John a little bit of. Kept thinking back, what was it, the trade we made where I gave you like I think 1,200. It was 12. I think it was 12. It was over 1,000. I don't remember exactly how much it was now. It was over 1,000 Raven for a relatively small amount of money. And then not long after that, the price of the Raven skyrocketed, and I was like, "Oh well,
can I buy it back?"
Away like a couple $100 worth of Raven for like nothing. But I mean, it is a friend. It's not like I'm bothered by it. It's just funny to think in retrospect.
I ended up just burning it, just creating assets out of it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, one of the things that I do is for people that I like. There's people that in your life that you really respect, and they've done really well by you. So there's some people that I've stuck some Raven aside for, because I feel that it would be wrong not to.
Okay, I don't want to let you go yet, Ellis. I still actually have another question here that I completely forgot to ask sooner, but we are reaching the top of the hour.
Okay.
It's in regards to the fork, right? Obviously, we're gonna when we have the fork, there's always gonna be two chains thereafter. You're gonna have that a P2SH upgrade and that original fork going down, right?
Yeah.
In regards to our assets currently right now, how is that going to be affected when we have that fork going on? And also, how is IPFS going to interact with that fork? And also the addresses. That's another thing, the addresses. Obviously, the addresses will change on P2SH, but if I'm having, say, for example, a QR code to a unique asset out as a business stamp, right? I have a QR code with my original unique asset that was minted prior to P2SH. Is that original address still going to be active and usable when the upgrade happens? I know there's a lot there. Sorry.
All right. It's all right. So one of the things that's worth noticing, worth remembering about Ravencoin is that it is a proof of work chain. So the way proof of work works is it's the highest or the longest chain or the highest value hash always wins. So in practice, when a chain is in normal operation and just running, there are very small forks that happen naturally because some people find a block here and they add to the wrong chain, and there are very small kind of extensions and bits that happen.
Like uncles.
Yeah, uncles and orphans and all sorts. People have all sorts of names for them. So the the question about when a hard fork happens on Ravencoin, it all that means is that for a period of time, two chains will exist until one of those chains gets a significant portion of the hash, and then that becomes the strongest chain and takes over. Ideally, what you'd like to see in a fork is one of the chains wins outright, one of the forks wins outright, and the other chain dies off. But on Ravencoin, security-wise, for issuers, I would say that never assume that is going to happen. But you can prepare for that as an asset issuer on Ravencoin by deciding which chain you'll support as an issuer. So if you have created an asset and you support the P2SH fork, then all you have to do is tell your token holders, and you could use messaging and broadcast messaging on Ravencoin if you wanted to, or just get the word out some other way. But you could tell your token holders that you are supporting the non-P2SH or non-Segwit code, and that's what you're going to do, and those are the tokens that are valid with your business, your use case, and that's how you would kind of get around that problem, because at the end of the day, those tokens are centralized around the issuer, and they control them and give them value. So that's how that would work. But yeah, for the chain, having a fork is not always ideal. The only reason to have them is to add technology and abilities and functions that make it worthwhile.
Right.
And need to make them worthwhile.
Right. So my expectation, is that P2SH is going to be the strongest chain, and that's going to be the main chain when the upgrade happens. It only makes sense to go that route. And when that does happen, what's going to happen to our assets?
So the assets will stay exactly the same. So no ownership changes of any assets or anything like that. So with P2SH actually exists on Ravencoin at the moment, but it only works with Ravencoin as a unit of exchange. So if you wanted to do a P2SH transaction, you can do on Raven, but it would only be with Ravencoin. So this fork is adding the ability to use P2SH addresses with assets. So the way you can tell the difference is normal addresses are with a large R, and the P2SH addresses are with a small r. So that's the difference. Like Bitcoin uses a 1 and a 3. That's the most straightforward way to identify them.
Perfect. Oh my God, that's good information right there. So you got the capital R as the original, I guess, prior to P2SH, right?
Yeah.
Original, I guess. And then you
Pay to script hash, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the pay to script hash is the
upgrade.
upgrade.
Yeah, it's a new one. Sorry.
It's the upgrade, and that's going to be with the lowercase r.
Yeah.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Which, yeah.
Now, do you know by any chance if IPFS is going to be affected by this upgrade when it comes to the P2SH when this upgrade happens? Because we have all these assets are attached to IPFS. When the upgrade happens, is it going to affect the creation of assets or what's already been created and minted?
No, it shouldn't affect anything that's existing. So the way IPFS works is it's just, or the way that Ravencoin records the hash isn't part of the consensus changes for to add P2SH or Segwit. So it's not part of the code that's being edited. So it's not something that's going to be changing. So it's going to stay the same, and you can issue assets in the same way. The only thing that will change is that for more institutional companies, people that want multi-sig, etc., the way that they would go about creating an asset that they would want to share on a multi-sig address would be the easiest way to do it is just create it as normal and then send it to a multi-sig address. But there would be some additional ways to create a multi-sig asset, which is I'm not going to go into because that sounds like fun.
Now, pay to script hash, is it reverse compatible? Meaning, is the lowercase r address going to be able to send assets or Ravencoin to the capital R?
Yes. Yeah, so you can transfer between the two as you would normally. Yeah, the only thing that changes for those addresses are the way that those transactions get signed off.
Beautiful.
So yeah, so
that's very important, man. That's very important. People need to know this because that's going to be the concern when they're faced with, oh, I got two addresses. Are they even cross compatible? Nobody knows. We need to bring more awareness to this to the community that when this happens, that yes, they are cross compatible. There is that ability to move those assets in between those wallets without having any concern about that. And IPFS will not be affected. If anything, P2SH will be a benefit to the Ravencoin project in the near future and the far future, because it's going to allow more projects to be built on thereafter. Perfect. LSJI07, aka Leighton Webb, husband, father, and protector. Thank you, sir, for being on the podcast. Where can the community reach out to talk with you? Because you're obviously one of those guys that knows a lot about Ravencoin, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who want to ask you more questions.
So the username is, you can contact us on Twitter or Discord, and the username works, LSJI07. Yeah, and I'm happy to help where I can. The other place to find us is Raven_Angels. And yeah, the people who die in need, we will find you because we want to help.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, sir, for being on the podcast. I appreciate you coming on a Sunday, especially when you showed up 16 hours early, man. Thank you, man.
Gotta be keen.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
I appreciate it. All right, with that said, Cryptonauts, until next time, stack SATS and HODL. Adios.